Hi-ho, it's me, Daddy Longlegs. Not really, I'm Ernie Steele.
Hi, my name is Gretchen, and I like to play sports, and I'm good at most of them except for golf, because golf clubs are too big for me. And when I try to hit the ball, the golf club goes boom out of my hands, and sometimes disappears or goes into the water.
Here we go! Get set for some backyard football fun! This is Sunny Day. I'm joined here today by someone who, as a player, was twice voted MVP of the injured reserve, Chuck Downfield.
Thanks, Sonny, but you can call me Chuck.
Lace up those cleats, folks. We've got quite a game for you today. Live from sunny Dimitri Dome, the Labrador Receivers versus the Potato Sackers.
Let me just remind everyone that this portion of today's broadcast is being brought to you by the fine folks at Big Boys Underpants, now with extra elastic.
Without further ado, it's time for some backyard football.
I didn't think they were going to be able to catch that kid.
First down and 20, 24-yard line.
That QB is going to feel that in the morning. Heck, I'm going to feel that in the morning. There's nothing I like better than a great tackle, Sonny, unless I'm the one being tackled.
Second and long, 23-yard line. Roll out.
It's like I always say, Sonny, defense starts with a D.
Third and 26-yard line. Looking for the open receiver, Jacinda Smith. Complete. Reese Worthington is finally stopped at the 39. First down and 20, 38-yard line. Rolls out. Might have got a yard on that. Second down and 35-yard line. Hands off to Vicky Kawaguchi. Tackled.
Hey, how about that?
Third down and 24-yard line. Gives it to... Wrapped up.
That QB had enough time to get a college degree.
First down and goal. 7-yard line. They will keep it on the 6 points.
This defense looks more worn out than my waistband.
It's not whether you win or lose. It's the fact that you did your best.
Booms one.
Whenever I watch a
proud of
football
yourself.
being made, I always think the same thing. Boy, am I glad I'm not a football.
Reese Worthington, about to kick off, gets it off.
I've seen better returns on tax day, and I don't even have a job.
First and 20, 12-yard line. Going to throw. They go to the air.
I don't think they'll throw it to that kid again.
It'll be second down. Second down and a ways to go. 12-yard line. Going to the air. Ernie Steele catches the ball. Dragged down.
Great protection by the line.
First and 20, 46-yard line. Drops back. Option play.
This is one pumped up offense, Sonny.
It is another set of downs. First down and 20-yard line. Hands off to Pete Wheeler. Second and long, 23-yard line. Pablo Sanchez passes it. That is a touchdown.
That was the right play at the right time.
The kick.
I love you guys.
Yes, the most exciting play in football, the field goal.
Annie Frazier will be starting it off. It is up. Picked up by the Labrador receivers. First down and 20, 27-yard line. They're going to throw. Throws it to the flat.
That kid couldn't catch a cold.
Second down and long, 27-yard line.
That quarterback went down like NASDAQ. Whatever that is.
Dropped for a loss. Third
me the
and
ball.
long,
Hi.
21-yard line. Drops back. Stephanie Morgan has it. Is brought to the ground after a gain. Fourth down, 34-yard line. Jacinda Smith fades back to pass. Reese Worthington pulls it in. Dropped. First down and 20, 39-yard line. Looking to throw. They send it airmail. Got it.
Wonderful score! You should be proud of yourself.
That's gotta be some kind of robot. Nobody is that good.
It's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate.
Yay! The kick.
Whenever I watch a field goal being made, I always think the same thing. Boy, am I glad I'm not a football.
We'll kick it off here. Booms one. First and 20, 20-yard line.
Get the show on the roadie. Number 54. Where are you?
Pablo Sanchez fades back to pass. Rifles a pass.
They blew it.
Brings up a second down. Second and long, 20-yard line. Throws it to the flat.
I don't know who they were throwing that to.
It'll be third down. Third down and long, 20-yard line. Vicky Kawaguchi was the first to get there. Fourth down and a long way to go. 6-yard line. Ernie Steele holds on to it. Is brought to the ground after a gain.
That hole was big enough for a choo-choo train. Ha! All aboard!
First down and 20, 23-yard line. Fades back to pass. Pablo Sanchez guns it. Picked off. First and 20, 20-yard line.
Today's completely wrong trivia fact. Abraham Lincoln played quarterback.
Going to throw. Vicky Kawaguchi. Interception. We're halfway through the game.
When you can go into the half with a lead, you must be doing something right out on the field. In this league, you gotta be able to score if you want to win. If you can't put numbers on the board, you can kiss your cleats goodbye.
Reese Worthington is going to be kicking off.
That kid had nowhere to go.
First down and 20, 19-yard line. Looks like they're going to the air here. Pablo Sanchez, Ernie Steele, got it. Is finally stopped at the 17. First down and goal. 17-yard line. Drops back to pass. Pablo Sanchez. You'd better believe that's a touchdown.
They're going the wrong way on defense.
Let's get him, guys.
Kicks it.
love
That kid sure can kick.
It looks like Annie Frazier. Back for the kick.
That kid puts the special in special teams.
First and 20, 25-yard line. Looks like they're going to the... It is caught. Dragged down.
They look like some kind of yardage eating machine.
First down and 20, 35-yard line. Jacinda Smith slings it.
If they keep passing like that, somebody's gonna get hurt.
That brings up second down. Second down and a ways to go. 35-yard line. Complete to Stephanie Morgan. Taken down. Third down, 28-yard line. Going to throw. Throws it to the flat. Caught. Dropped.
I'm not sure if these kids could tackle themselves.
First and
22.
goal, 9-yard line. Drops back. Jacinda Smith. Stephanie Morgan pulls it in. Is finally stopped at the 2.
Go.
Second down and goal, 2-yard line. Jacinda Smith, 6 points.
Man,
Their
that
love for the
defense has
game.
more holes in it than my dad's socks.
What are you doing?
Kicks it.
Wonderful
That
score!
kick
Got
was
to
a
feel
beautiful
their love for the game.
Reese Worthington will be doing the kicking. Here's the kick.
That was a nice return set up by the old flying wedge play.
First and 20, 44-yard line. Long drop.
When the quarterback is tackled, Sonny, it usually results in a sack.
Nowhere to go. Ouch. Tackled for a big loss. Second down and a ways to go. Back to throw. Pablo Sanchez. Gun. Amir Khan has it.
You gotta do it.
Touchdown!
I've seen better defense on offense.
Kicks it.
That is your head kick.
Turn yet?
Annie Frazier will kick off. Here's the kick.
I didn't think they were going to be able to catch that kid.
First and 20, 23-yard line. Looks like they're going to the air here. Throws it. Dante Robinson catches the ball. Dropped.
The offense is running on all cylinders.
First and 20, 24-yard line. Jacinda Smith slings it complete. Did they hold on? Yes, it's a touchdown.
They really dodged a bullet that time.
Let's
Make
go.
the play!
Gets it off. It is good.
You've got to appreciate their love for the game.
Reese Worthington is going to be kicking off. Kicks it.
That was a nice return set up by the old flying wedge play.
First down and 20, 29-yard line. They go to the running back again, fired into the flat.
What the heck were they thinking?
It'll be second down. Second and long, 29-yard line. Pablo Sanchez, Amir Khan, got it. Dragged down.
You can't learn good blocking like that, Sonny. You have to be taught.
First and goal, 14-yard line. Going to the air. It is a touchdown.
Oh,
Hey, you think he's doing that? I'm really hard for us to win.
Wowie, wow, wow.
What's my number?
Boom's one.
Oh, way.
I still don't know why they call it a field goal.
Annie Frazier, about to kick off, gets it off.
That kid puts the special in special teams.
First and 20, 39-yard line. Going to throw. Jacinda Smith guns it.
That's a classic case of taking your eyes off the ball.
Brings up a second down. Second and long, 39-yard line. They send it airmail.
Maybe that kid ought to pick another sport.
Third down and long, 39-yard line. Guns it. Reese Worthington got it. Tackled.
Looking good.
First down and 20, 25-yard line. Long drop. Jacinda Smith pulled in. It's 6.
People should be proud of yourself.
Did somebody say lunch?
Boom's one. It's a final. For Chuck Downfield, I'm Sunny Day. Until next time, keep those footballs flying. So long.